At Old Bridge, the River Boyne was low enough to ford, but no soldier could mistake the danger. Jacobite cavalry waited behind hedges on the south bank. Dutch Blue Guards stepped toward the water beneath William of Orange's guns. Behind the ridge, James II watched the same river. Two crowned rivals had reached one narrow crossing, and by nightfall only one would hold the road to Dublin. Yet the battle would settle far less than later memory claimed. The rivalry began 2 years earlier when England's Catholic king, James II, lost power in the Glorious Revolution. William of Orange, the Dutch stadtholder and James's Protestant son-in-law, crossed to England in November 1688. James fled, and Parliament offered the crowns to William and Mary. Parliamentary authority now stood beside dynastic inheritance. James still claimed England, Scotland, and Ireland, so his flight began a war rather than ending a reign. James chose Ireland for his return because most of its population was Catholic, and because conquest and confiscation had concentrated land and power in Protestant hands. Irish Jacobites hoped a restored James would secure worship, office, and property. Many Protestants feared losing their political security. Religion mattered intensely, but this was not a tidy contest between two uniform faiths. It joined rival kingship, Irish land, local survival, and the constitutional future of three kingdoms. Louis XIV gave James ships, money, officers, and troops. France was fighting the Grand Alliance in the 9 Years' War, so an Irish campaign forced William to divide resources. James landed at Kinsale in March 1689 and entered Dublin as king. A Jacobite parliament repealed earlier land settlements and asserted Irish legislative authority. Catholic hopes rose, but Protestant resistance hardened at Derry and Enniskillen, where sieges and raids made the struggle immediate. William's cause was equally international. Dutch, Danish, English, Scottish, Irish Protestant, and French Huguenot soldiers served in his army. Some Catholics opposed Louis's expansion, while some Protestants remained loyal to James by hereditary principle. Those crossed alliances are evidence against reducing the Boyne to a timeless religious feud. William needed Ireland secured because it threatened his kingdoms and his coalition. The Boyne was an Irish battlefield, inside both a British succession crisis and a European war. The first Williamite expedition under the veteran Duke of Skomorg reached Ireland in 1689, but stalled amid rain, disease, and poor supply. William came the next summer, landing at Carrickfergus on June 14, Old Style. His presence accelerated the campaign because command and royal authority now traveled together. James withdrew toward Dublin. The armies faced one another near Drogheda, where the Boyne and its roads offered both a defensive barrier and a route to power. Estimates vary, but Heritage Ireland gives roughly 36,000 troops for William and 25,000 for James. William had stronger artillery and experienced multinational infantry. James's army included Irish infantry and cavalry, French regulars, and English or Scottish Jacobites. Numbers mattered because William could threaten several crossings, yet weapons alone could not guarantee movement through water under fire. Discipline, terrain, and the timing of cavalry counterattacks would determine whether numerical strength became victory. The Boyne was not an impassable river. Summer water was low and several fords were known. Its bends, marshy edges, hedges, lanes, and rising ground still made crossing dangerous because men in the water could not easily fire or hold formation. James placed his main line around Old Bridge and Donore. The road behind led toward Duleek and Dublin. It allowed retreat, but Williamite troops reaching those southern roads could cut off the Jacobite army. On June 30th, Old Style, William rode near the river to inspect James's position. A cannon shot struck close and a fragment grazed his shoulder. Reports of his death spread, but William appeared before his troops to prove he lived. The wound mattered because both coalitions depended on a reigning king's physical authority. It also exposed the coming battle. Artillery reached across the Boyne, commanders observed from dangerous ground, and rumor moved faster than verified fact. William used his larger army to create pressure at separated points. A column under Count Maynard Skomorg marched upstream toward Roughgrange, seeking to turn the Jacobite left. James sent much of his force westward to block it. Historians differ over whether this was mainly a genuine flanking attack or a diversion. In practice, it did both, because troops drawn from Old Bridge could not reinforce the main ford when William's center began to cross. Around dawn on July 1st, Old Style, Williamite artillery opened across the river. Smoke drifted above fields while infantry formed on the north bank. The Dutch Blue Guards led the assault at Old Bridge. They entered the Boyne in ordered ranks, holding muskets and ammunition above the current. Cannon supported them, but the ford compressed men into a vulnerable front. Discipline won a foothold on the south bank, turning a dangerous passage into a bridgehead. Jacobite infantry contested walls and lanes near Old Bridge while cavalry struck troops emerging from the river. Irish horse had room to attack before Williamite formations settled, so the crossing became a close fight rather than a simple advance. Muskets, pikes, swords, horses, and hedges broke the plan's clean geometry. The Dutch held because training and reinforcements kept their line intact. More Williamites crossed, widening the bridgehead and reducing the cavalry's opportunity. The Duke of Skomorg, William's 74-year-old commander, entered the fight as French Huguenot troops wavered. He was killed amid confusion. Contemporary accounts do not give one secure sequence for the fatal shots. The Protestant clergyman and former Derry governor George Walker also died. These losses reveal compressed violence because senior figures stood among disordered units. They also resist triumphalism. The advancing army paid heavily before securing the south bank. Upstream, Maynard Skomorg's force crossed, but ground and Jacobite opposition slowed it. The maneuver did not close the retreat route as William hoped. That complication changed the battle's meaning. William threatened encirclement, yet river distance and delay prevented a complete trap. James's commanders could still protect the road through Duleek. The Williamites were winning crossings, but they had not destroyed the Jacobite army or ended its ability to fight elsewhere. William crossed downstream with cavalry near Dribridge despite his wounded shoulder. Fighting developed on the rising ground toward Donor as Jacobite horse slowed the advance. William's presence coordinated troops and gave the coalition a visible center. This crossing increased pressure because James now faced Williamites across several sectors. Once the Old Bridge bridgehead held and cavalry moved on the south bank, the Jacobite position became difficult to maintain without risking the road behind it. James watched from the hill near Donor. His army was beaten at the river but not surrounded. Jacobite cavalry and disciplined units covered a withdrawal toward Duleek where narrow roads delayed pursuit. James left for Dublin and then moved south. Critics turned his departure into a moral verdict, yet withdrawal alone was not proof of cowardice. The stronger criticism was political. By leaving Ireland for France soon afterward, James weakened supporters who still had a war to fight. The surviving record cannot support one precise casualty total. Estimates range from several hundred killed to more than 1,000 dead and wounded, probably with higher Jacobite losses. Contemporary dispatches served political purposes, records were incomplete, and later retellings changed the cost. Securely stated, the Boyne was bloody without becoming an annihilation. Most of James's army escaped, while William controlled the field and the direct road to Dublin. William entered Dublin on July 6, old style, giving victory enormous political weight. The result confirmed his hold on Eastern Ireland and strengthened his authority across the Grand Alliance. It also deprived James of the capital where he had presented himself as returning king. The battle changed the balance because William could advance from a secure center. It did not deliver all Ireland, erase Jacobite forces, or settle the land and religious questions driving the conflict. James sailed from Kinsale to France, but Irish Jacobite commanders continued resistance. Patrick Sarsfield became a central leader, and Limerick anchored the remaining war. William's first siege there failed after Sarsfield's cavalry destroyed a siege train at Ballinedy. The reversal exposed the limit of victory at the Boyne because a one battlefield could not replace supply, fortifications, and local control. William left Ireland while other commanders carried the campaign into another year. Military collapse came in 1691, especially at Orem, where the Jacobite army suffered catastrophic defeat, and at the Second Siege of Limerick. The Treaty of Limerick ended organized resistance in October. Thousands of soldiers left for France in the flight of the wild geese. Victory allowed the Williamite settlement to harden, but later confiscations and penal laws came through political decisions beyond the Boyne. The battle opened the road, it did not write every consequence. For Irish Catholics, defeat confirmed a profound loss of political and landed power. For many Irish Protestants, William's victory guaranteed civil and religious security. Those memories developed within unequal institutions. The Protestant ascendancy, restrictive laws, dispossession, and competing national traditions gave the battle meanings beyond its military scale. The Orange Order, founded more than a century later, made William and the Boyne central symbols. Public ritual carried a 17th-century succession war into modern streets and politics. The date reveals how memory remade the event. The armies fought on July 1, 1690, under the old-style calendar then used in Ireland and England. That equals July 11th in the modern Gregorian calendar, not July 12th. The 12th became the commemorative date later, absorbing older celebrations associated with Orem and calendar change. This does not diminish tradition. It distinguishes the battle day from the history of commemoration, itself evidence historians must explain. The painting attributed to Jan Wick offers another kind of memory. It compresses smoke, cavalry, standards, river crossings, and command into one readable scene. Like all battle art, it is evidence of representation rather than a camera's record of 1 second. Portraits and coins show how William and James projected legitimate rule. Read with dispatches, terrain, archaeology, and scholarship. These objects reveal both what happened and how rival communities wanted the Boyne remembered. Returned to the fort at Oldbridge. The Dutch guards crossed, William gained Dublin, and James lost his strongest chance to recover the crowns. But the Jacobite army retreated, Limerick resisted, and war continued because one crossing could not resolve every cause. The Boyne mattered as military victory inside struggles over monarchy, land, religion, and European power. Its longest consequence came from memory. Two kings and a shallow river became symbols carried for centuries after the smoke cleared.